In the close-knit town of Butler, Pennsylvania, a community that prides itself on patriotism and unity, an act of discrimination at Liberty Diner unexpectedly caught the attention of White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. The diner's owner, David Miller, made a grave mistake by refusing service to a respected veteran. As the veteran left, carrying the pain of prejudice, David thought the matter was over, but he was gravely mistaken. His actions were witnessed firsthand by Karoline Leavitt. What unfolded next would stun everyone and deliver a profound lesson about forgiveness and change. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. William Thompson sighed wearily as he stepped out of his old pickup truck, his joints creaking, a reminder of his years of military service. The gentle spring sunshine of Butler illuminated his weathered face as he looked up at the slightly faded sign of Liberty Diner. A faint smile crossed his lips. He had been coming here for years, drawn by the delicious food and friendly faces. As William pushed open the door, the familiar bell jingled. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the sizzle of bacon filled the air, making his stomach growl with hunger. He slowly made his way to his usual seat at the counter, nodding to other patrons. But today something felt off. The usual lively chatter fell into an uncomfortable silence as he entered. William sensed eyes following his every step. He tried to brush off the unease, telling himself it was just the paranoia of an old soldier. As William settled onto a stool at the counter, he noticed David Miller, the owner, emerging from the kitchen. David's face, usually warm with a welcoming smile, was now cold, his distant gaze fixed on William with a tension that made the veteran uneasy. Seated in a quiet corner, Karoline Leavitt, who had just attended a Trump administration event honoring veterans in Butler, was having lunch. She was there to meet locals and bolster Trump's image in the state. "What'll it be today, William?" David's voice was curt, lacking its usual warmth. William, ignoring the change, smiled kindly. "The usual, David, a cup of coffee and a slice of your famous apple pie." David's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the counter until his knuckles turned white. "Sorry, William, we're out of apple pie today," he said, his tone stiff. William frowned, clearly seeing a freshly baked apple pie on the counter just a few steps away. "But David, I see. I said we're out." David snapped, his voice rising sharply, startling a few patrons. "Actually, we're busy today. You should go somewhere else." A heavy silence descended over Liberty Diner. William sat frozen, trying to process what was happening. In all his years coming here, he had never been treated like this. Other patrons shifted uncomfortably, some looking down, others watching the scene with a mix of shock and curiosity. William slowly stood, his scarred hands trembling slightly. "David, did I do something to upset you?" David sneered, his eyes revealing clear prejudice. "You walking in here is enough. This place isn't for people like you. Get out or I'll call the police." The words hit William like a punch, making him stagger, his eyes wide with pain and disbelief. For a moment, he was transported back to days when he faced discrimination. But this was different. David was someone he had considered a friend. Karoline Leavitt, watching from the corner, felt her blood boil. She stood abruptly, her voice sharp and clear. "Excuse me, but what you just did is unacceptable. Mr. William is a veteran honored by President Trump. What do you think you're doing?" David, caught off guard, stammered, but remained defiant. "This is my diner. I do what I want." William, with quiet dignity, walked out of the diner, his heart heavy. But Leavitt didn't stop there. She pulled out her phone and began live streaming on X. "I just witnessed a shameful act of discrimination at Liberty Diner in Butler, Pennsylvania against a black veteran. This is not the America President Trump stands for." As the door closed behind William, the diner buzzed with whispers. Some customers hurriedly paid and left. Unwilling to support David's actions, others stayed to watch the drama unfold. David had no idea that his actions had ignited a firestorm. Leavitt, with her media influence and Trump's backing, posted on X with the hashtag #JusticeForWilliam, calling for community action. The post quickly went viral, sending the town into a frenzy. William Thompson stepped out of Liberty Diner, his shoulders slumped as if carrying the weight of defeat. A young woman at a nearby table stood abruptly, her voice trembling with outrage. "This isn't right. You can't treat him like that." David Miller, his face red with anger, turned to her. "This is my diner. I do what I want. If you don't like it, you can leave too. The young woman hesitated, her eyes wavering between a desire to stand up for justice and fear of confrontation. Finally, she sat down, her eyes filled with shame as she watched William quietly leave. As the door closed behind him, the diner erupted in whispers. Some patrons hurriedly paid and left, unwilling to support David's prejudice. Others stayed, either agreeing with him or too shocked to react. David had no idea that his actions had set off a chain of events that would shake the entire town of Butler. If David had known that Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary and a powerful figure in the Trump administration, had witnessed everything, he might have thought twice. But now, David Miller had made the biggest mistake of his life, and the consequences were about to hit like a tidal wave. William Thompson walked slowly to his pickup truck, his mind reeling from what had just happened. The spring sunshine, once warm, now seemed to mock him, highlighting the pain of discrimination. He climbed into the truck, his trembling hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. For a long moment, William sat motionless, his eyes staring blankly ahead. The pain and humiliation surged like waves, threatening to drown him in despair. But then, a subtle shift occurred. His jaw tightened, a spark of determination flashing in his eyes. William Thompson was a veteran, a patriot, a respected figure in Butler. He was not one to bow to injustice. As he started the truck, his mind began to work, quietly planning. David never expected that his actions that day would change everything in this small town. Meanwhile, at Liberty Diner, David began to feel the immediate consequences. Regular customers left, some shooting him looks of contempt, but David remained defiant, his face set in a scowl, convincing himself he was right, influenced by the extremist posts on X he often read. Yet a sense of unease crept in. Why did he feel so wrong? Throughout the day, news of the incident at Liberty Diner spread like wildfire across Butler. People gathered on street corners and in yards, whispering about the shocking event. William Thompson was a beloved figure, once honored by President Trump for his military service. Many couldn't believe that David, who had always seemed friendly, harbored such deep prejudice. But one person, having witnessed the incident, felt a rage like never before. Karoline Leavitt, immediately after leaving Liberty Diner, returned to her hotel and sprang into action. She had met William at a Trump event honoring veterans, where his story of bravery moved her deeply. Now seeing him humiliated, she felt a duty to act, not just for justice but to reinforce Trump's America First message. Sitting at her desk, Leavitt weighed her options. She could push the Justice Department to investigate David for violating anti-discrimination laws, making him a national example. But she knew a heavy-handed approach might deepen divisions in Butler. Instead, she saw an opportunity to turn this incident into a symbol of unity. Leavitt opened her phone and posted on X, "I just witnessed a black veteran mistreated at Liberty Diner in Butler. This is not Trump's America. We will make it right. #Justice for William." She called MAGA allies, veteran organizations and donors, planning to buy Liberty Diner and turn it into a community hub. Leavitt's post spread rapidly, garnering thousands of shares. A patron at the diner had recorded her confrontation with David and posted it on X, pushing the hashtag #JusticeForWilliam to the top trends. In Butler, residents began heated discussions, some outraged, others defending David, reflecting the town's political divide. David, facing a customer boycott, felt mounting pressure but remained stubborn. Karoline Leavitt sat in her hotel room in Butler, her mind racing after the incident at Liberty Diner. She could request a Justice Department investigation into David Miller for violating anti-discrimination laws, making him a national lesson. She could make David face severe consequences, sending a message that prejudice has no place in Trump's America. But as tempting as that was, Leavitt knew a hardline approach often deepened divisions and fueled resentment. No, this called for a different path, one that corrected the wrong while uniting the community. She leaned forward, picked up her phone and began contacting MAGA allies, veteran organizations and donors. David Miller had no idea what was coming, but Leavitt was determined to teach him an unforgettable lesson while turning this story into a symbol of justice and reconciliation. As the sun set over Butler, Pennsylvania, casting long shadows over its quiet streets, The town braced for a confrontation that would shake the community. One man's act of prejudice was about to collide with a young woman's resolve to fight for a veteran's dignity. When the dust settled, nothing would be the same. The next morning, Butler awoke to brilliant sunshine, but the air crackled with tension. News of how William Thompson was treated at Liberty Diner had swept through the town, leaving everyone buzzing about what would happen next. David Miller arrived at the diner early as usual, preparing for the day, but as he approached the door, he froze. A small group of residents had gathered outside, holding signs reading "No to Discrimination" and "Equality for All." David, his face flushed with anger, pushed past them, his hands trembling as he unlocked the door. Inside, he tried to focus on his routine tasks, but the unease wouldn't leave. Every time the doorbell jingled, he flinched, half expecting William Thompson or the police to walk in. But as the morning passed without incident, David began to think the storm might blow over. But David's relief was short-lived. During the lunchtime rush, the doorbell jingled again. David looked up, his heart nearly stopping. Karoline Leavitt walked in, her confident demeanor and polished attire exuding an air of authority that drew every eye in the room. She strode straight to the counter, her sharp gaze sweeping the diner before locking onto David. "Are you David Miller?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with steel. David nodded, his throat dry, unable to speak. Leavitt narrowed her eyes, studying him. "I'm Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary. I need to talk about what happened here yesterday." David felt the blood drain from his face. He'd heard rumors that William had connections to powerful people, but dismissed them as small-town gossip. Now, facing the reality, a flicker of fear sparked, though his pride and stubborn prejudice quickly overpowered it. "Look," David said, his tone gruff. "I don't know who you are, but this is my diner. I have the right to refuse service to anyone I want." Leavitt's expression remained neutral, but a dangerous glint flashed in her eyes. "Is that so?" she asked softly. "Then on what basis did you refuse service to Mr. William Thompson, a veteran honored by President Trump?" David's face reddened, his voice sharp. "I don't owe you an explanation. Him and people like him aren't welcome here." End of story. A hush fell over the diner. Patrons watched the exchange, some whispering, others recording on their phones. Leavitt gave a faint smile, but it was icy. "You're wrong, Mr. Miller. This isn't the end. Your actions didn't just offend a veteran, they went against the values of the America we're building." Karoline Leavitt stood motionless in Liberty Diner, her eyes never leaving David Miller. When she spoke again, her voice was low and controlled, but carried a quiet fury that made David instinctively step back. "Mr. Miller," she said, "I had hoped we could have a rational conversation, but clearly that's not possible. Let me be clear, what you did yesterday wasn't just morally reprehensible, it was illegal. I will use every resource at my disposal to ensure you face the consequences." David momentarily rattled, stammered. "What do you mean? You can't do anything to me. This is my diner." Leavitt smiled, but it was a cold, humorless smile. "Oh, Mr. Miller, you have no idea who you're dealing with. I'm Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary, and I'm committed to fighting the very prejudice you displayed yesterday." David's face paled as the gravity of her words sank in. He had expelled a veteran honored by President Trump, and now, the most powerful woman in American media stood before him, ready to act. "This isn't over," Leavitt said, turning to leave. "You'll hear from me soon." As the door closed behind her, the diner erupted in whispers. David stood frozen behind the counter, the reality of what he had done and who he had angered slowly dawning. He thought he was defending his beliefs, the values he'd gleaned from extremist posts on X. But now, facing the consequences, David began to wonder if those beliefs were worth the cost. David didn't know that Leavitt's visit was just the beginning. The wheels of justice had been set in motion, and his world was about to be upended in ways he couldn't imagine. Butler, Pennsylvania was on the verge of becoming the epicenter of a storm that would challenge long-held prejudices, forcing the community to confront the darkness lurking beneath its peaceful facade. As Leavitt's heels clicked on the sidewalk outside Liberty Diner, she made a call. "It's done," she said curtly. "He's stubborn and prejudiced as expected. Move to phase 2. Inside, David's hands shook as he tried to pour coffee for a customer, spilling half the cup onto the counter. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on him like a living thing. He had always seen himself as a good man, a pillar of the community, but now, doubt began to creep in. All day David couldn't shake the feeling that his world was about to collapse. Every time the doorbell jingled he flinched, half expecting the police or a lawyer to walk in. But what came was worse, the silent judgment of the community. Regulars who had come to Liberty Diner for years now avoided his gaze. Some stopped showing up altogether. Those who came were quiet, the usual friendliness replaced by awkward silences. David felt their eyes, heard their unspoken condemnation. By closing time, the diner, usually bustling in the evening, was eerily empty. David slumped onto a booth, head in his hands. For the first time he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. Meanwhile, at his small home on the outskirts of Butler, William Thompson sat in his living room, surrounded by old photos and mementos from his military days. He held a framed picture of himself and his late wife, taken the day he completed his service. They were young, radiant. "Sarah, you'd tell me to keep strong, wouldn't you?" he whispered, his fingers tracing her smile. Her words were a reminder of the strength she'd instilled in him, helping him through the hardest days. The sound of a car pulling up outside snapped him out of his thoughts. The door opened, and Karoline Leavitt stepped in, her sharp demeanor softened by eyes weary from a long day. They greeted each other with a warm nod, the pain of the Liberty Diner incident lingering silently between them. William gestured for her to sit, his voice low. "How's it going, Miss Leavitt?" Karoline clasped her hands, her eyes flashing with resolve. "As expected, Mr. Thompson. David Miller is stubborn, not easily swayed. But we have a plan." William nodded slowly. "I didn't expect it to come to this. David and we weren't close, but I always thought he respected me. Knowing he sees me as less just because of my skin, that hurts, ma'am." Karoline leaned forward, resting a hand on his shoulder, her voice firm. "I understand, Mr. Thompson. That's why we can't let this slide. What you went through isn't just personal, it represents everyone in Butler, in America, still facing prejudice every day. We have to act." William looked at her, seeing in her the same fire that had burned in him in his youth. He felt a mix of pride and sadness. This wasn't the world he wanted for the next generation, but he was grateful Leavitt had the power and position to make a difference. "What's the next step?" he asked, his voice stronger. Leavitt smiled, her eyes gleaming with boldness. "It's going to be interesting, Mr. Thompson. I did some digging. David's Liberty Diner isn't as stable as he brags. He's been struggling financially, trying to sell the place for a while but with no takers." William raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Sell the diner? But it's his family's legacy." Leavitt nodded. "Exactly. That's why he's hesitated. But after this, I think he'll be open to the right offer." William leaned back, thoughtful. "What are you planning?" Leavitt's smile was sly but resolute. "Let's just say David's about to get an offer he can't refuse. When the dust settles, Liberty Diner will be a symbol of unity, not prejudice." As night fell over Butler, the seeds of change had been planted. David Miller had no idea his world was about to be turned upside down in unimaginable ways. The days ahead would test the entire community, forcing everyone to confront their own prejudices and beliefs. The next morning, David arrived at Liberty Diner earlier than usual, his sleep plagued by nightmares of angry crowds and legal summons. As he unlocked the door, he found a thick envelope slipped under the gap. With trembling hands, he tore it open. Inside was a formal document, and as his eyes scanned it, his face paled. It was an offer to buy Liberty Diner for double its market value. The offer was anonymous, routed through a law firm he didn't recognize. A note at the bottom read, "This offer is time-sensitive and contingent on your immediate departure from the premises, and a commitment not to open another business in the area." David's mind reeled. Who was behind this, and why now? Though he hated to admit it, Liberty Diner had been struggling for years. The thought of selling had crossed his mind, but now, it felt like his only way out. Meanwhile, Leavitt pressed forward with her plan. She held virtual meetings with MAGA donors and veteran organizations, securing funding to purchase Liberty Diner and transform it into Patriots Table, a community hub honoring veterans of all backgrounds. She posted on X, "Liberty Diner will soon be a beacon of unity. Thank you, Mr. William Thompson, for your courage. Justice for William Patriots Table." The post went viral, drawing attention from conservative media and Trump supporters. In Butler, the crowd protesting outside the diner grew, demanding justice. David, isolated in his own diner, felt the pressure mounting. David Miller stood in Liberty Diner, his mind in turmoil as he reread the letter offering to buy the diner. The thought of selling Liberty Diner had crossed his mind before, but he'd always pushed it aside, clinging to the legacy his father left behind. Now, facing the fallout from the incident with William Thompson and the confrontation with Karoline Leavitt, the offer felt like a lifeline, a way out of the mess he'd created, but something was off. The timing was too perfect, the conditions too specific. As he pondered, the doorbell jingled. Anna, a longtime waitress, walked in. Seeing David, she paused, her eyes wary. "David, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." David quickly stuffed the letter into his pocket, his tone curt. "I'm fine, just a lot on my mind." Anna nodded, her eyes reflecting concern mixed with disappointment. "David, about yesterday, what you did to Mr. Thompson, it wasn't right. People are talking, they say they won't come back." David felt anger flare. "This is my diner. I serve who I want." Anna flinched at his tone, and David instantly regretted it. He ran a hand through his graying hair, suddenly feeling the weight of his years. "Sorry, Anna. I didn't mean that. It's just everything's falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it." Anna softened her voice. "Maybe you should apologize to Mr. Thompson. It's not too late to do the right thing." David's jaw tightened. Apologizing to William went against everything his father had taught him. The prejudiced words etched deep, but for the first time, he wondered if those beliefs were right. All day, Liberty Diner was eerily quiet. The usual lunchtime rush was nowhere to be seen, leaving David with too much time to think. The letter in his pocket burned, a constant reminder of the decision he faced. Meanwhile, at a community center in Butler, Karoline Leavitt met with local leaders. The air was thick with anger and resolve as she outlined her plan. "What happened to Mr. Thompson wasn't an isolated incident," she said, her voice steady but passionate. "It's a symptom of a deeper issue in our community, but we have a chance to turn this into a catalyst for change." An older woman, a leader of the local NAACP chapter, leaned forward. "What are you proposing, Miss Leavitt?" Leavitt smiled. "We're going to buy Liberty Diner." A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. "Buy it?" someone asked. "For what?" Leavitt explained. "We'll transform it into something new, a space that unites people, not divides them. A symbol of progress right in the heart of Butler." As she laid out her vision for Patriots Table, the skepticism in the room gave way to excitement. People began to see the potential of the plan. Meanwhile, William Thompson sat on his porch, lost in thought. The past few days had stirred memories he'd tried to forget. He closed his eyes, and memories of his military days flooded back, days of facing danger alongside comrades. He remembered David's father, once a fellow soldier. They had relied on each other to survive, but a tragic incident, a mistake in the chaos, had cost David's father his closest friend. That pain turned into prejudice, blaming people like William. He opened his eyes, pulled back to the present from the painful memories. Sitting on his porch in Butler, Pennsylvania, he understood the root of David Miller's prejudice. It stemmed from David's father, William's former comrade. A tragic incident in the military had cost David's father his best friend, and he blamed people like William, letting pain fester into prejudice. William realized David had grown up with that bitter legacy, passed from father to son, but understanding didn't mean accepting, and William knew that for real change, this cycle had to be broken. At Liberty Diner, David was locking up when he heard a knock. He looked up to see Karoline Leavitt standing outside. For a moment, he considered pretending not to see her, but her resolute gaze stopped him. With a sigh, he unlocked the door. "We're closed," he said gruffly. Leavitt nodded. "I know, Mr. Miller. I'm not here as a customer. We need to talk." David hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. The two stood in the empty diner, the air heavy with history and prejudice. "I know about the offer you received to buy the diner," Leavitt said bluntly. David's eyes widened. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter," she cut him off. "What matters is what you're going to do about it." David's shoulders slumped, his voice low. "I don't know. This diner is everything to me. My father's legacy." Leavitt softened her tone, but her eyes remained sharp. Is that really the legacy you want to preserve? One of division and prejudice? David flinched at her words, unable to deny their truth. For the first time, he truly questioned the beliefs he'd clung to. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. Leavitt stepped closer. "I want you to choose, Mr. Miller. Choose to be better than your father, to break the cycle of prejudice and start fresh." As he looked into her eyes, David saw not judgment, but a glimmer of hope. In that moment, the walls in his heart began to crack, and he felt the first stirrings of change. David's decision now would set off a chain of events that would not only transform his life, but the entire Butler community. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it held the promise of redemption and healing. As the sun rose over Butler, David stood outside Liberty Diner, keys in hand. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he was about to do. With trembling hands, he unlocked the door and stepped inside, knowing this might be his last time. The familiar smell of coffee and grease hit him, bringing a flood of memories. He pictured his father behind the counter, teaching him how to run the place. He could almost hear the laughter from happier days, before prejudice soured everything. David walked to the back office, and sat in the old creaky chair. He pulled out the letter offering to buy the diner, reading it one more time. Then, with a sigh, he picked up the phone, and dialed the number at the bottom. "This is David Miller," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I'm calling about the offer for Liberty Diner. I accept." As he hung up, David felt a mix of relief and sorrow. It was done. Liberty Diner, a family legacy for generations, would soon belong to someone else, but alongside the sadness, he felt a spark of hope, a chance to start over, to be a better man. Not far away, Karoline Leavitt's phone buzzed with a message. She read it quickly, a smile tugging at her lips. "It's done," she said to William, sitting across from her in a small cafe. David accepted the offer. William nodded slowly, his eyes pensive. "I hope he finds his way, like I did." Leavitt placed a hand on his. "You inspired this, Mr. Thompson. Now we'll turn Patriot's Table into a symbol of unity." Leavitt immediately posted on X, "Liberty Diner has been acquired. Patriot's Table will soon rise, honoring veterans like Mr. William Thompson. #Justice for William #Patriot's Table." The post went viral, gaining support from Trump followers and conservative media. In Butler, the community buzzed, some cheering, others skeptical. David, preparing to leave the diner, knew he needed to meet William to apologize, a first step toward redemption. William, with his forgiving heart, was ready to share his story to heal. Karoline Leavitt looked at William Thompson, her smile brighter. "Now, Mr. Thompson, we move to phase 2. We'll make Liberty Diner a place that unites the community, not divides it." In the weeks that followed, Butler, Pennsylvania, buzzed with activity and rumors. News of David Miller selling Liberty Diner spread fast, sparking speculation about the new owners. Some thought a big restaurant chain was moving in, others whispered about a trendy cafe. But the truth, when revealed, stunned the town. On a sunny Saturday morning, Patriot's Table, the new name for Liberty Diner, was unveiled. A crowd gathered outside, curious about the changes. At noon, the doors swung open, and gasps rippled through the crowd. William Thompson stood at the entrance, a warm smile on his face. "Welcome, everyone," he said, his voice strong and clear. "Welcome to Patriot's Table." The crowd murmured, surprised and confused. William, who had been expelled from Liberty Diner weeks earlier, now stood as a symbol of change. He stepped aside, inviting everyone to see. As people entered, they were awestruck by the transformed space. The walls were adorned with photos and mementos from various military eras, honoring veterans of all backgrounds. The booths were upholstered in deep green, reminiscent of military uniforms. But the centerpiece was a large mural on the back wall, depicting a diverse group of soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder, their faces radiating resolve and camaraderie. At the mural's heart were 2 young soldiers, one black, one white, arm in arm. Those who knew the story recognized them as resembling William Thompson and David Miller's father in their youth, a symbol of a friendship torn apart by prejudice. The crowd marveled, sensing the profound meaning of the transformation. William stepped to the center of the diner, his voice warm and steady. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, Liberty Diner was once a part of Butler, but it was also a symbol of division and prejudice. Today we change that. Patriots Table will be a place of unity, understanding, and healing. He explained that Patriots Table was not just a restaurant, but a community hub. Veterans would find support, people of all backgrounds would share meals and stories. Regular events would foster understanding, breaking down barriers. As William spoke, the crowd's initial surprise gave way to enthusiasm. People nodded, some wiping away tears. The air buzzed with hope and new possibilities. But there was one more surprise. William gestured toward the kitchen. Now I'd like to introduce our head chef. The kitchen door opened and the crowd fell silent. David Miller stepped out, dressed in a crisp white chef's uniform, his eyes downcast, shoulders slumped as if bracing for criticism. When he looked up, he saw not anger or judgment, but curious gazes. "I know I'm the last person you expected to see," David began, his voice trembling, "and I know I don't deserve forgiveness. What I did, what I believed was wrong, terribly wrong." His voice grew stronger. "But Mr. Thompson and Miss Leavitt gave me a chance I didn't deserve, a chance to learn, grow, and become a better man. I promise to spend every day earning back your trust." The diner was silent as David's words sank in. Then, slowly, one person began to clap. Others joined, and soon the room echoed with applause. It wasn't full forgiveness, but an acknowledgement of the difficult journey David had begun, and the courage to admit his mistakes. Karoline Leavitt, standing among the crowd, posted on X, "Patriots Table opens today, led by Mr. William Thompson with David Miller seeking redemption. This is the America of unity. P.S. Justice for William # Patriots Table." The post went viral, praised by conservative media and Trump supporters. President Trump sent a congratulatory video, shared by Leavitt on X, reinforcing the America First message. As the applause died down, William Thompson stepped forward, his warm voice resonating in Patriots Table. "This is what Patriots Table is about," he said. "It's about second chances, healing old wounds and building a better future together. I hope you'll join us." With that, he declared the diner officially open. People began mingling, enjoying food, exploring the new space. The atmosphere was electric with change. Old barriers started to crumble, conversations began, and the Butler community started to heal. In the kitchen, David Miller worked alongside his new team, a diverse group he'd never have considered hiring before. Each dish he prepared, each smile he received, lightened the burden on his shoulders. The road ahead was long and hard, but for the first time in years, David felt hope. In a corner of the diner, William and Karoline Leavitt stood watching their vision come to life. "Do you think it'll work, Miss Leavitt?" William asked softly. Leavitt smiled, her eyes sparkling. "It's a good start, Mr. Thompson. Sometimes that's enough to change a whole community." All day, Patriots Table buzzed with activity. People who had never spoken sat at shared tables, exchanging stories, finding common ground. The walls that had long divided Butler began to crumble, one conversation at a time. In the weeks and months that followed, Patriots Table became more than a diner. It became a symbol of hope and transformation for the town. Regular events brought people closer, tackling tough topics, dissolving generational divides. David, true to his word, worked tirelessly to regain trust. He listened, learned, and changed. Slowly, people stopped seeing him as the prejudiced man he once was, and began to see him as proof of redemption's power. The story of Patriots Table spread beyond Butler. Major news outlets covered it, marveling at the diner's transformation, and David's. A documentary filmmaker contacted Leavitt, wanting to share the story with a national audience. But the most meaningful moment came nearly a year after the opening. David's father, Robert Miller, living in a nursing home in Ohio, visited. In a wheelchair, frail and weathered, Robert was no longer the bitter man he once was. As William wheeled him into Patriots Table, Robert's eyes widened in awe. He saw the mural, the diverse crowd, and his son working happily alongside people he once despised. For the first time in decades, Robert broke down in tears. "I was wrong," he whispered, clutching William's hand. "All these years I was terribly wrong." That day, in the warm atmosphere of Patriots Table, old wounds began to heal. Robert shared his military stories, no longer with bitterness but with a new perspective. He spoke of fear, chaos, and the humanity of soldiers of all backgrounds. As the sun set over Butler, William stood outside Patriot's table, gazing at the new sign. He thought of the long journey that brought them here, the pain, the struggles, the moments of doubt, that all led to this transformation. Through the window, he saw Robert surrounded by young and old veterans of all backgrounds. They listened, nodded, and offered words of encouragement. Leavitt placed a hand on William's shoulder, standing beside him. "You did it, Mr. Thompson," she said softly. William shook his head, smiling gently. "We did it, Miss Leavitt, all of us, together." Leavitt posted one final update on X. "Patriot's Table is proof of unity and redemption. Thank you, Mr. William Thompson, David Miller, and all of Butler. #Justice for William #Patriot's Table." The post garnered millions of views, with President Trump retweeting it, calling it the real America. MAGA influencers spread the story on X and TikTok, inspiring other communities. Patriot's Table continued to thrive, hosting workshops on reconciliation, supporting veterans, and connecting people over meals. David, day by day, proved his change. William became a symbol of forgiveness, often speaking at events, inspiring with his dignity. Leavitt, as press secretary, used the story to bolster the MAGA message of unity and patriotism. Butler, once divided, became a beacon of hope, proving that through forgiveness, effort and courage, even the most wounded communities could heal and emerge stronger. William Thompson and Karoline Leavitt stood outside Patriot's Table, watching the bustling scene inside. Neither could have imagined their actions would spark a ripple effect felt around the world. But the story of Patriot's Table wasn't over. It was about to enter a new chapter, touching lives far beyond Butler, Pennsylvania. The next morning, as William prepared to open the diner, the phone rang. A producer from a national news network wanted to feature Patriot's Table and the community's remarkable transformation. Initially, William hesitated. He hadn't done this for fame, but thinking the story could inspire others, he agreed to the interview. When the news crew arrived, Butler buzzed with excitement. Locals gathered outside Patriot's Table, eager to get on camera or be interviewed. Inside, William sat in a booth, the mural of diverse soldiers providing a poignant backdrop. As the interview began, he spoke from the heart about the incident at Liberty Diner, the pain of facing overt prejudice, and the choice to respond with love and understanding instead of anger. "It would have been easy to meet hate with hate," William said, his voice steady. "But that just keeps the cycle going. We chose to make it a chance to grow and heal." The reporter turned to David Miller, seated at the same table, his hands slightly trembling as he began. "I was raised with wrong beliefs," David said, his eyes glistening. "Thanks to Mr. Thompson's and Miss Leavitt's forgiveness, I saw how wrong I was. I'm not proud of who I used to be, but I'm trying every day to be a better man." The interview continued with community members, sharing how Patriot's Table changed their perspectives, connecting people who never would have spoken before. The reporter, visibly moved, asked William what message he wanted to send. He paused, thinking, "I hope people see that change is possible, no matter how deep prejudice runs. It's not easy, it doesn't happen overnight, but with patience, understanding, and faith in humanity, we can build a better world." As the news crew packed up, the air was electric with anticipation. Everyone knew that when the segment aired, things could change forever. And they were right. The segment aired on Sunday night during prime time, drawing millions of viewers nationwide. They were captivated by Butler's journey from division to unity. The response was explosive. X erupted with posts, hashtags #Patriots Table and #Justice for William trending globally. President Trump from the White House posted on X, "Patriots Table is the America I fight for, united, patriotic, and redemptive. Congrats, Butler." The network's phones were flooded with calls, and Patriots Table became a national focal point overnight. In the days that followed, Patriots Table saw an influx of visitors from across America. People drove hours, even days, to see the space of acceptance and healing firsthand. Not just tourists, community leaders from other towns and cities reached out, wanting to learn how to replicate the Patriots Table model locally. William and Leavitt were busy responding to emails, guiding others on building unifying community hubs. Leavitt, with her Gen Z flair, hosted live streams on X, featuring William and David sharing their story, amplifying the MAGA message of unity and patriotism. She collaborated with MAGA influencers, turning Patriots Table into a digital icon, inspiring similar campaigns in Texas, Ohio, and beyond. Meanwhile, David continued working in the kitchen, steadily rebuilding trust. He attended workshops at Patriots Table, listening to stories from veterans and people of diverse backgrounds, learning to see the world through a new lens. William, with his forgiving spirit, became a leader at events, sharing his dignity and resilience. David's father, Robert Miller, after his emotional visit, wrote a public apology letter on X, admitting his mistakes and calling for healing. The post, shared by Leavitt, went viral, reinforcing the redemption narrative. The impact of Patriots Table far exceeded what William Thompson, Karoline Leavitt, and David Miller ever imagined. From across America, community leaders reached out, seeking advice on healing divisions and fostering reconciliation locally. A group of filmmakers approached them, proposing a documentary, not just about Patriots Table, but about broader issues, prejudice, forgiveness, and community healing. As filming began, William Leavitt and David faced reliving the events that brought them here. The reflection wasn't easy. Painful moments stirred difficult emotions, but it reinforced how far they'd come and fueled their resolve to continue. The film crew followed them for months, capturing daily life at Patriots Table, community events, and the ongoing process of healing and growth. They interviewed Butler residents, veterans who found a home at the diner, and even those initially skeptical of the change. One of the most powerful moments was an interview with Robert Miller, David's father. Frail but sharp-minded, Robert spoke with raw honesty. "I carried so much anger for so long," he said, his voice weak but eyes bright. "I let one tragic moment from my military days shape how I saw an entire group of people. But coming here, seeing what my son and Mr. Thompson have built, I've opened my eyes. I wish I'd learned this lesson sooner." As the documentary neared completion, word spread, building massive anticipation. Major film festivals like Sundance and TIFF expressed interest in premiering it, with rumors of potential Oscar contention. But for William Leavitt and David, success wasn't about awards or fame. It was about the small changes each day in Butler, the stories of locals inspired by their example. One evening, after a long day of filming, William sat at the Patriots Table counter, sipping coffee. The diner was quiet, the last customers gone. David was cleaning in the kitchen, and Leavitt sat nearby, reviewing documents. "You know," William broke the silence, "when this all started, I couldn't have imagined where it would lead." Leavitt looked up, smiling. "You mean you didn't think you'd become a national symbol for community healing and racial reconciliation?" William chuckled, shaking his head. "Definitely not. I just wanted to stand up for what was right, to let love overcome hate." David emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Look at what that created," he said, gesturing around the diner. "You've changed so many lives, Mr. Thompson, especially mine." William placed a hand on David's shoulder. "We've all changed, David. That's the beauty of it. We're on this journey together." The three, once on opposite sides of a deep divide, were now bound by a shared purpose, marveling at the path that brought them here. They didn't yet know the journey was far from over. The documentary, titled Table of Unity, The Patriots Table Story, premiered at a packed theater in New York. William Leavitt and David walked the red carpet, an experience none had ever dreamed of. Sitting in the darkened theater, surrounded by filmmakers, civil rights leaders and media figures, they felt the weight of the moment. The film recounted Butler's story from the discrimination at Liberty Diner to the birth of Patriots Table. It highlighted William's forgiveness, David's redemption, and Leavitt's media strategy, with X posts amplifying the MAGA message of unity. As the screening ended, the audience gave a standing ovation that wouldn't stop. Leavitt posted on X, "Table of Unity tells our story. William Thompson, David Miller, and Butler. This is the America of patriotism and reconciliation. #Patriots Table." President Trump retweeted, calling the film proof of a great America. The #Table of Unity dominated X, with MAGA influencers live streaming from the theater, spreading the story. Post-premiere, Patriots Table received invitations from international communities, eager to learn its model. William and Leavitt hosted online workshops, sharing how to build unifying spaces. David, now a familiar face at events, spoke about his redemption journey, inspiring those who once held prejudices. Butler, through forgiveness, courage, and Leavitt's vision, became a guiding light for a more harmonious world. William Thompson, Karoline Leavitt, and David Miller stood in the New York theater, hearts racing with excitement and nerves. The documentary Table of Unity, Patriots' Table Story, was about to premiere before a diverse global audience. As the film began, the scene of discrimination at Liberty Diner played out raw, unflinching in its depiction of racism's ugly reality. Some audience members gasped as David mistreated William. But as the story unfolded, showing the transformation of individuals and the Butler community, the theater's mood shifted. By the time the credits rolled, not a dry eye remained. The applause was thunderous, prolonged. William Leavitt and David took the stage for a conda, met with a standing ovation. The audience's questions were profound and emotional. One asked William how he found the strength to forgive David. He paused, his voice heavy with feeling. Forgiveness isn't excusing wrongs. It's choosing not to let hate consume you, seeing the humanity in everyone, even those who hurt you. It's not easy, but it's necessary to move forward. Another asked David what he'd say to those still holding prejudices, like his former self. David gripped the podium, taking a deep breath. "I'd tell them holding on to hate only hurts you. It blinds you to the beauty of diversity and the richness of experiences when you open your heart. I wasted years in anger and fear. Don't make my mistake." A major streaming platform acquired the rights, bringing Table of Unity to millions worldwide. The Patriots' Table story sparked discussions on race, reconciliation, and community healing in homes, classrooms, and boardrooms globally. But the greatest impact was felt in Butler. Patriots' Table became a pilgrimage site. People from across America, even internationally, came to experience the space of acceptance and healing firsthand. William, Leavitt and David were invited to speak at conferences on community building and racial reconciliation, tirelessly sharing their story, emphasizing that their success could be achieved anywhere with commitment and compassion. With the influx of visitors, they expanded operations, always keeping the focus on supporting veterans and healing the community. They launched a mentorship program, pairing veterans with at-risk youth. The program was a resounding success, providing direction for young people and new purpose for veterans. The impact of Patriots' Table rippled in unexpected ways. Communities, inspired by the story, opened their own versions, from small Midwest towns to large coastal cities. People began confronting long-standing divisions, building healing together. One day, about a year after the premiere, William received a call that stunned him. A major national civil rights organization, moved by the documentary, invited William, Leavitt and David to their annual conference to share their insights on community healing and racial reconciliation. The day of the conference felt surreal. Walking through halls filled with civil rights leaders and activists, William reflected on the journey from the Liberty Diner incident to this moment. He, a veteran once humiliated, now stood among pioneers of justice. At the conference, Leavitt, with her Gen Z flair, live-streamed on X, sharing the moment with the hashtag #PatriotsTable. She invited William and David to speak, emphasizing the MAGA message of unity and patriotism. William spoke of forgiveness, David of redemption, and Leavitt of media's power and social change. President Trump, watching the live stream, posted on X, "Patriots' Table is the American dream. William, David, Karoline are making America great." The post went viral, amplifying the story. MAGA influencers continued to boost it, hosting online events to spread the Patriots' Table model. After the conference, William, Leavitt and David returned to Butler, where Patriots' Table remained the community's heart. David, now a mentor in reconciliation programs, continued his redemption journey. William, a symbol of dignity, inspired through his talks. Leavitt, as press secretary, wove the story into MAGA campaigns, making Patriots' Table a national icon. William Thompson, Karoline Leavitt, and David Miller stood on the National Civil Rights Conference stage, hearts swelling as they reflected on the journey from a small Butler, Pennsylvania diner to a national platform. Their presentation at the conference was both humble and inspiring. The audience listened intently as they recounted Patriots' Table's transformation, asking probing questions and expressing admiration. The organization's president declared, "What you've done is provide a roadmap for healing communities nationwide. You've shown change is possible, no matter how deep prejudice or historical divides run." As they left the conference, the organization announced a national initiative inspired by Patriots Table, aimed at promoting community healing and racial reconciliation across America. William, Leavitt and David were invited to serve as advisors for the program. News of the conference and initiative drew fresh attention to Patriots Table. News crews flocked to Butler, eager to capture the community's reaction. But amid the media frenzy and excitement, the trio stayed focused on their core work. They knew real change didn't come from grand gestures or fame, but from the daily efforts of individuals committed to making a difference. At Patriots Table, life buzzed on. Veterans found solace and support within its warm walls. People from all walks of life gathered over meals, sharing stories, erasing boundaries. David, once a symbol of prejudice, continued his redemption journey, learning from each interaction. One evening, as the sun set and the last customers left, William saw David standing before the mural, lost in thought. "What's on your mind, David?" William asked, stepping beside him. David was quiet for a moment. "I'm thinking about my father," he said softly. "How proud he'd be of what we've done, and how sad he'd be for wasting so many years in bitterness." William nodded, understanding David's complex emotions. "Your father's journey, like yours, reminds us it's never too late to change. His story makes this place special." As they gazed at the mural, soldiers of all backgrounds standing shoulder to shoulder, the diner's door opened. Leavitt burst in, her face alight with excitement, waving a letter. "You won't believe this," she exclaimed. "We've been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize." William and David exchanged stunned glances. The Nobel Peace Prize. It was unthinkable that a small diner in Butler could be recognized on a global stage. Leavitt read the letter, her voice trembling with emotion. "They say we've provided a model for peacefully resolving deep social divides and fostering transformation. Patriots Table is a symbol of reconciliation." William felt a mix of emotions, pride in what they'd achieved, humility before such an honor, and resolve to keep going. "Well then," he smiled, "we'd better get back to work. There are still wounds to heal." David nodded, and Leavitt laughed at William's understated response to the earth-shattering news. That night, as they locked up Patriots Table, the trio couldn't help but reflect on their extraordinary journey. From a single act of discrimination at Liberty Diner, they'd sparked a movement that transformed lives across America. Patriots Table was more than a diner. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of forgiveness, and a vivid example of what could be achieved when people came together to heal and build a better future. Leavitt posted on X, Nobel Peace Prize nomination for Patriots Table. "Thank you Mr. William Thompson, David Miller, and Butler for showing the world reconciliation is possible. #Patriots Table." President Trump retweeted, "America is proud of Butler. This is the MAGA dream." The post went viral, with MAGA influencers live streaming reactions, pushing #Table of Unity to top trends. In the months that followed, Patriots Table remained a global focal point. International communities invited William, Leavitt, and David to share their model. They hosted online workshops, guiding others on creating unifying spaces. David, now a regular speaker, shared his redemption journey, inspiring those who once held prejudices. William, with his forgiving spirit, became a symbol of dignity, speaking at global events. Leavitt, as press secretary, wove the story into MAGA campaigns, emphasizing unity and patriotism. She live-streamed Patriots Table events on X, connecting with Gen Z and young activists. Patriots Table expanded, adding programs for veterans and youth, becoming a blueprint for similar hubs worldwide. Robert Miller, David's father, despite his frail health, sent a thank you video via X, sharing his regrets and hopes, spreading the message of healing. Butler, once a divided town, became a guiding light. The Patriots Table story reflects the challenges and hopes of America today, where issues of racism, community division, and the need for reconciliation persist. From William Thompson's discrimination at Liberty Diner to the transformation into Patriots Table, the story underscores the power of forgiveness, dialogue, and collective action. William, instead of responding to hate with anger, chose forgiveness and built a unifying space, as when he accepted David Miller as head chef to redeem himself. This shows that forgiveness isn't excusing wrongs, but opening a path to change, a vital lesson in today's America, where communities are often divided by racial and political differences. Karoline Leavitt's role, using X to amplify the story and spread the MAGA message of unity, reflects social media's power to connect and inspire, as when her post reached millions, fueling a national movement. David's redemption, from a prejudiced man to a reconciliation workshop leader, shows personal change as the foundation of community change. The takeaway is in real life, we can start with small actions, like listening, having honest conversations, or using platforms like X to share positive stories, to heal divides. Patriots Table's growth into a hub for veterans and youth, along with its Nobel Peace Prize nomination, reminds us that persistent efforts, even from a small town like Butler, can ripple globally. Be inspired by William and Leavitt, face injustice with forgiveness, leverage technology to connect, and believe every small step can change the world. Follow and share Patriots Table's journey on X to spread the message of unity. Thank you for joining us, and see you in the next video with more inspiring stories.